It says we've gone live.
It does.
I believe you.
I think we're live. I think we did it.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, if you guys notice that something's not live, let me know. But welcome to Bring the Receipts, the second episode, or the second edition, where I want to tackle a topic that has some controversy, but from a point of view of education and citing sources and illuminating it in terms of a more illuminating it more academically, if you will. And this time, we're going to talk about story gaming, a topic that I know the least about, apparently, and one that there are a lot of opinions about. And what I want to do is, first and foremost, learn, and second of all, get a bunch of information and stuff that we can reference later if, the argument ever comes up again about what story gaming is. You can always point to this video and be like, here, we did the work. That's kind of what we're doing. We're doing the work to clear everything up. But I wanted to go around and get kind of brief introductions out of the way. People probably know you, and this is just a brief kind of how you got into the hobby, and then also a little bit about you. Just go around the room. Let's see. This room is Night Danger to my right, which I'm
Knocked
to the
down.
left.
Knocked down.
We'll start with Night Danger and then go
Okay,
down to
okay.
Spyder. I'm doing this weatherman with the opposite direction here.
Okay. In my visuals, you pointed at me.
Okay.
But I would say that I started with AD&D Second Edition when I was a teenager. Just a kid from youth group at my local church wanted to. How does this? He wanted to run for another friend of mine, and I tagged along just because that's what you did. When one person started doing something, then everyone else did it at the same time. But when I went to start running the game, I very quickly bounced off of the assumptions of AD&D Second Edition. I bounced off of the prep expectations that Second Ed placed on its players. I bounced off of the mechanics and the rules and everything about it. And I've since come around on AD&D First Edition, but Second Ed continues to be kind of a block for me. And so when I went to run the game, I started exploring other RPGs. And I kind of went on a bit of a multi-year bender where I was running a different RPG for my players every 2-3 weeks. Just constantly trying new stuff to the point where they complained and said, hey, we'd like to have the same characters for more than a month. How about that? I don't necessarily, I think what we might come across in conversation here is I don't actually necessarily see a distinction between post-Forge story games and conventional RPGs. And I think that the distinction basically boils down to the ideological priors of OSR and story gamers as like a class of person, and their opposition to each other on a personality level prevents them from communicating accurately about what their games actually do.
Okay. Nice. And then Spyder, how about you?
Well, I've told this story before, and it's entertaining every time. I actually got introduced to D&D thanks to an actual satanic cult.
I have not heard this story before, so I'd love it if you told it.
I missed this one. Yeah, I'm all ears.
Yep. Nope. This actually happened. This was a real thing. It actually happened to me. So my dad's telling me that Pokemon is pocket demons. That was funny, by the way, when Sandy Peterson said that wasn't real. I was like, no, that was like I had a whole thing with my dad about Pokemon not being pocket demons. What had happened was I go in. We were doing 3.0 D&D, so go in. Play a session with them. It doesn't feel anything like what the rules are saying. It's 3.0 artwork and what they were doing No, nowhere near. I mean, like this was a D&D game expressively set up so people could explore what it was like being evil. Like I didn't know this until later. Like I walk in, they're like, "Let's play D&D." I'm like, "Okay, cool," and I'm like, "Wait a minute. Why are we? You know, I think prostitutes want to stay in the brothel. I don't think they want to burn it down. No, no. They want money for that. Stop. Like stuff where you kind of walk around like, what the heck did I? What the heck just happened to me? And so that happened. I went, and instead of being like, "Oh my gosh, this is evil," it was like, "No, this literally doesn't line up with like what I read. Like these two things this just doesn't line up." And they were the only game that I knew about. That was it. That was all I knew about. So I went and reread the rules and then started running my own game. Because it was like, well, if I can't if I can't have someone run this for me, I should just run it. And I've just forever GM'd ever since. I jumped ship on 3.5 so hard that I was doing 4th edition preview stuff and reverse engineering the mechanics based off the preview stuff, because 3.5 has a huge broken problem, and I don't really that shouldn't be a controversial statement. And so I just jumped to 4E. I was like, nope, I'm done with this. I'm out. This is a broken mess of a game. From 4th, I went to Burning Wheel. And because I really wanted to start doing more stuff with story, and story with a capitalized story. I wanted a coherent theme. I wanted something that felt like an actual honest to God story as it was coming out. And I'd realized that railroading wasn't going to do it. And hopefully that's something that we cover in great detail for all the OSR people who use story gaming to mean railroading. Stop it. It bothers me personally.
Hold on. Wait a minute. You're telling me that story gaming is not railroading?
This is the most frustrating thing.
Yes, thank you.
This is what's so irritating is that it's not even just that like story gaming generally refers to a particular type of game that belligerently, aggressively, and occasionally with profanity tells you not to railroad your players. It's that we already had a term for railroading.
Right.
Railroading.
Railroading.
You can just call it
railroad.
You can.
I will say, I did mention that earlier just to get that reaction as a good reaction.
Thank you. That's so nice.
No, but like,
I wanted a blood vessel to just go bah,
this is the whole argument, right? Like this is the hinge of it all.
Okay.
Before we do that, I just want to mention. I want to mention that kind of the impetus for this is a little bit of my backstory to this is I came to this from the modern way into 5e through Critical Role season campaign 1, the first one, and then from there just started noodling backwards in the edition, and only very recently started getting into old school play, OSR stuff, and even rerouting back to 5e with Bro SR things with Drakenheim. And so through this whole journey, the discussion of story gaming has always been just kind of floating around there. And what's tagged me a bit is my assumptions keep morphing as I try to understand it compared to what I've been learning, which is admittedly going in a wargaming direction.
Sure.
So I think where I'm coming from is a little bit more trying to distinguish, and this will lead directly into this kind of
this is
first
okay
part.
Because Tony Bath was a story gamer.
So it took me 2 years to break out of trad railroading. And this book, The Adventure Burner, was the thing that I was reading like once a week for 2 years. Railroading is a virus. It's bad for you. It took me a long time. And
this is your brain on railroading.
This right here which is, I mean, this is Forge adjacent. This is about as like this is a story game. It took me a very long time to unlearn all of those habits, like a long time, because I mean, I've been GMing since I was like 15 years old, so I came into this at like 25. So actually, that's not too far off, Scooter for Mike. That's not too far off. That's not terribly far off. We'll get to that. But from Burning Wheel, I then started trying a whole bunch of other stuff. Then I eventually made Crescendo. And Crescendo is kind of my, like... Crescendo is my love letter to story gaming, and it's also my knife to the throat. Could you please stop being so stupid? So, like, I'm coming at this from a place of love and deep frustration, and both of those things are going to come out in, like, equal measure. I do think that there are some really, really, really serious issues with the genre. I think that Ross from Mythic Mountain wrote a really, really brilliant takedown on the genre as a whole. It doesn't hurt that he complimented me for saying I fixed it, but, you know, humility. So
disclosures, sponsorships. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But that is an interesting thing. And it kind of brings us to this first thing, is like kind of what we're doing here. And I think part of my confusion is not exactly understanding the nature of story game versus what I've been doing. So maybe we put forward, like, let's start with some wrong versions of what story gaming might be. Just kind of verbalize the misconceptions first, just to kind of get those in the air and kind of think like, here's the wrong thing. Start on the wrong foot, if you will. But something that kind of gives us a thing to bounce off of and try to define what it actually is. Maybe the more accurate thing that we can then prove from there. That's kind of maybe where we should start, I think.
I think I can take you there from the same background as you. So coming out of playing second edition as a teenager, and then around 2016, 2015, I started GMing, but I was just kind of fumbling around. I used 5th Ed because it was what was in print. It was like the most recent version of the game. And because it had warlocks in it, and that's a cool class. The warlock when I play 5th Ed, the warlock is my favorite. I don't care if it's suboptimal. I don't care if it's mechanically
Fourths is better.
You know, here's the thing about 4th edition is that I don't like MMOs. Now the
that's for later. That's another.
Okay, we can get there.
That's another stream.
But I was running 5th, and at the time we were a friend of mine. He sends me, tells me about Critical Role, and I follow the first campaign, and I'm frustrated because I'm running the game once a week for my friends at the same time as I'm following this Critical Role thing, and I'm seeing how they do it versus how my inclination is to it. And early on, I picked up on what 5th edition was about. 5th edition is about killing monsters. Absolutely everything else about the game is downstream from 5th Ed is about killing monsters. And so every session, my prep was I would go on a website called Kobold Fight Club where you can balance out the difficulty of encounter. And I would make a counter that was estimated to be 2 to 3 times more difficult than should be possible for the party to overcome. And then I would throw it at them. And then I would throw it at them, and they would burn every resource tooth and nail. And we had 1 to 2 character deaths every 3 sessions. But we just so when I hear people complain about 5th edition being a game where you can't kill the players, what I hear is that you're a weak GM, that you're a coward who isn't willing to do what the game is capable of doing in a very punitive sense. And so I basically used the game to run a series of high intensity set piece battles, and it was a lot of fun. And we had lots of interesting stories that emerged as a result of this. But I kept feeling like I was fighting the system on it, in that the mechanics were not rewarding the types of behavior that produce interesting outcomes after the fact, which is to say I didn't want mechanics that would guide you towards the narratively interesting choice, but rather I wanted mechanics that would guide you towards behavior that produces interesting stories as a matter of course. And so I thought, well, what if I just broke genre? What if I went out of fantasy entirely? And I was like, I'll run a Western. And I looked up Western RPGs and Google and Reddit. They're like, well, there's Boot Hill, which is basically just a skirmish war game. And I've since played Boot Hill, and it's wonderful. I love Boot Hill deep in my bones. But this other game came up, which is basically the opposite of Boot Hill, called Dogs in the Vineyard. Dogs.
I'm sorry.
And you're laughing because, of course, Dogs in the Vineyard is not like Boot Hill. In fact, Dogs in the Vineyard is not like any other game I have ever read or encountered since. It was the first major game that I saw from Vincent Baker, who, of course, made Apocalypse World and led to the worst of the worst that we see in the story gaming scene now. You could say that Dogs in the Vineyard is indirectly responsible for Thirsty Sword Lesbians.
Yep.
But aside from this, and it's here, I think I want to pull my first receipt. So I'm going to hit present here. Will it allow me? Will it allow
Hopefully.
Ooh, yeah. There we go. Okay.
Is it? There we go. Let's add this to the stage here. Oh, man. Hold on a second. Let's make this...
We have...
Nope.
That's as big as it gets. Sorry, boss.
That's as big as it gets.
Oh, wait. Hold on. I bet you if I do this...
Oh, there we go.
And then I zoom in on the PDF. Hey.
We got there.
So there is a lot of blather here. Dogs in the Vineyard is basically written in the voice of Joss Whedon circa Firefly. And it's very conversational, which can make it annoying to parse the mechanics. And the mechanics of Dogs in the Vineyard, frankly, suck.
Ow.
Sorry, they do. And Baker will agree with me on this.
That hurts.
Right here, there's an interesting hump I have to get over every time I GM Dogs. Maybe it'll go away eventually. The PCs arrive in town. I have someone meet them. They ask how things are going. The person says, well, things are going okay, mostly. And the PCs say, mostly? You have to understand, this is a game about being basically like circuit riding police officers or bounty hunters. Like you're fighting lawlessness and sin in the Wild West. It's very Mormon. It's a little unusual, but anyways.
Very.
And I think, they're going to figure out what's wrong in the town. I better stonewall, poker face on. And then I'm like, wait a sec. I want them to figure out what's wrong in the town. In fact, I want to show them what's wrong. Otherwise, they'll wander around waiting for me to drop them a clue. I'll have my dumb poker face on and we'll be bored stupid the whole evening. So instead of having the PC say, oh no, I meant that things are going just fine and I shut up now, I have the PC launch into a tirade. Things are awful and blah, blah, blah. But the point being is Baker took the mystery genre, the Call of Cthulhu genre, where there's something horrible going on and the players are supposed to figure out what's going on and stop it, and said, actually, the question is not whether or not the players figure out what's going on, because they will eventually. Either you will feed it to them with a spoon and they'll feel like morons, which is not fun, or it will be abstracted mechanically and they won't have any sense of accomplishment, or you're playing with giga IQ super geniuses and you don't need this advice anyway. But he figured out that the actually interesting thing is navigating the mess that comes from trying to solve a problem that you know about, right? Trying to pull apart the threads. And with Dogs in the Vineyard, you have a game that says, actually, you should not be doing the Call of Cthulhu thing where they have to find this clue, which will lead them to this clue, which will lead them to this clue, which will lead to this set piece encounter, which will lead, like, Call of Cthulhu modules are some of the worst on the planet. They are, and they have ruined the discourse on mystery RPGs for probably the next 15 years. Because everyone is totally held captive by this railroad idea of a mystery. And Dogs in the Vineyard, in like almost 20 years ago, said, screw that. Give the players all the information and see if they can figure out what to do with it, because they probably can't.
Nice.
And but what's interesting about Dogs in the Vineyard, if we continue on here, is this is more GM advice. Follow the player's lead about what's important. You present an interesting situation to your players, which is to say you do not present a plot. You don't present a set of clues that they have to follow to a certain specific desired solution. You give them a problem and you just badger them with as much information about that problem as possible. And then you see what they do. And letting them figure out what to do with the information they have as competent characters, and this is something we'll get to later. I think that story games, as a rule of thumb, assume competency on the part of the character, not necessarily on the part of the player.
Yeah, pretty much all the time.
Because it's more fun to pretend to be someone competent than it is to pretend to be someone that's incompetent. And if you're trying to take the game seriously, it's hard to pretend to be someone that is incompetent without feeling like a moron and acting goofy. But we come down here. Where is it here? They'll surprise you. They'll take sides you never expected. People endlessly delight me, and one of the reasons they do is because of their capacity to take surprising sides. This is, I think, the core. Like, I read this running 5th edition, and it blew my brain open. And I was like, oh my gosh, who cares about stat blocks? Who cares about combat? Who cares about hex and chit set piece battles? Those are fun, but you have the opportunity to put players in a powder keg situation where they are furiously trying to solve an unsolvable problem. And the best part about all of this, and this is the big thing that appealed to me, is when I was running these games, I had just recently got married. I was trying to juggle work and school. My wife and I would be pregnant just soon after this. These games don't require you to prep.
Nothing.
This is and I think this
Really
is
nothing.
this is the thing that really undermines the story game, accusation.
Oh yeah.
Is
Not
that
much.
this is not about you prepping plots and dragging your players through it like a failed novelist. This is about you on a napkin writing down 3 people who hate each other and then dropping your players in the middle and just letting them do stuff and just reacting to what the choices they make. It's an entirely the most successful long running game I've had recently was a Blades in the Dark hack for Star Wars, and I didn't prep a single session. I literally showed up with the rules in front of me, and I just asked the players what they want to do. Mm-hmm. And you can just riff off of the mechanics, and you can riff off of the assumptions of the game, and it will spit out interesting situations. And I really feel like the Bro SR
of all people
would understand this. You would, and
yes.
I actually, to his credit, I have absolutely no doubt that Jeffro understands this, because Jeffro, when he was talking with the RPG pundit on Dunder's show in that hilarious surprise SmackDown, who does Jeffro invoke? What would Ron Edwards think about all this? What would Ron Edwards think about the current state of RPGs? Who do you think Ron Edwards would appreciate? The OSR or the Bro SR? And of course, that's a rhetorical question. I think basically what Jeffro was tacitly doing there is suggesting that the Bro SR is continuing the tradition of doing interesting things with RPGs in a way that Edwards' detractors and also even Edwards himself failed to do. But I think I've talked long enough, and I see Spyder like shaking and touching his beard.
I'm trying. Okay?
I'm sure he has.
Oh no!
Leave me alone.
I'm sure he has stuff to say. But do you have any questions? Thus far?
Well, this one just kind of popped in. Would you say story game tends to have the GM play in almost a different way? Like you're going to the table not having any idea what will happen. I thought that might be an interesting kind of thing to throw out, you guys.
So sort of. The thing is the story games that I've gotten the most out of, that I've enjoyed running the most, are games that give the GM explicit procedures. And in this way, this is where I really think the through line from AD&D to Blades in the Dark is the GM has explicit procedures, and you just follow those procedures, and you feed them to the players, and the players will do interesting stuff with them, and you don't have to worry about it. All right? And so in a lot of ways, it's a hands-off approach to GMing, in that you are almost entirely reactive. You are not seeding conflict. You are not seeding danger, because you're just putting the players in a default world that is unstable by nature, and anything they do gives you casus belli to react aggressively and stir the pot.
Right.
So we can get to Spyder, but this makes me think, like, then where is this confusion coming from? I guess
it's fun,
it's a
fun to
genuine
make
question.
fun of your enemies on the internet, and calling them railroaders doesn't have the same. It doesn't have the same roll off the tongue as calling them story gamers.
But there's also, like, I have this confusion myself, just even in a more good faith reason. Like, when story gaming is evoked, there is kind of this immediate reaction of just act like play acting. There's no mechanic. Like, it kind of goes like the theater kid route. I was a theater kid a long time ago, once upon an age, and so then it's evoking different things in here that are a lot more nebulous immediately than everything you guys just mentioned, which suddenly kind of feels like just the
grandfather of all current story games is powered by the Apocalypse World by Vincent Baker.
Right.
Apocalypse World is the magnum opus of story gaming today. It defines what the genre does. Everything is downstream from it. And Apocalypse World is 300 pages of very explicitly detailed rules procedures.
Mm-hmm. Very. Oh, yeah.
Like, it is not a rules-light game. It is not a simple game. It has fairly dense terminology that is hard to wrap your head around. It has explicit rules for doing basically anything in the game, including managing the activities of factions, NPCs. It has rules for navigating interactions for player versus player conflict. It has rules for establishing player backstory and history. It is not a rules light system. And I actually think the failure of most modern story games, most post-Apocalypse World story games, is that they are cowards and lazy people who refuse to write consistent mechanics. And so they'll spit out a 30-page powered by the Apocalypse hack of a game that is good for maybe a one-shot or 2-3 sessions, but they're not willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears to have a coherent system that will generate 45 to 100 sessions of play.
Sort of like most of the BX hacks that are floating around.
It's the same problem.
It's
because
the
they're
same
not
thing,
different
actually.
things. They're actually not different things. Story games are just RPGs.
Yeah. The problem is that not only that, but a lot of the time, I prefer to think of story game, like, the big difference, because I'm in the middle of reading Winning Secrets right now, which, by the way, is a fantastic book. There's this jab that Jeffro makes towards the end of the book where he's like, oh, story gamers don't actually do this convergence thing. They don't do it like this. And I'm just sitting there like, motherfucker. Sit down and play Burning Wheel and shut up. But because Burning Wheel does.
But he won't. He's swing dancing. He doesn't have time. It's okay.
Well, then who cares? But there's the thing that I think most definitely, like, having played in the story game genre since 2012, running most of my games in it, having at this point probably played over a dozen different distinct systems that, like, not just dabbled in, like played. The biggest difference between the OSR and story gaming is that story gaming is explicit that it wants its rules to have theme evoked. That's the big thing. That's the biggest thing about them. They want, like, OSR pretends it doesn't have a theme. It does, but, like, it pretends it doesn't.
There's only one man alive who understands that, by the way. We'll get to him. There's one man alive who understands that, and we'll get to him.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But anyway, so we get this like OSR evokes a theme and pretends it doesn't. It's like, oh, we're just going to go on an adventure. It's like, okay, define adventure. Story games are explicit that rules can evoke different, wildly different themes. So, like, this is Hearts of Lulin. This is a game about like Chinese wuxia films. This has rules for romance. This literally has a rule where your heart can break and you just act out. You're in the middle of playing the game, and the GM goes, that should do something to your character, shouldn't it? And you go, oh, all right. And then you roll the dice, and if you fail the roll, guess what? You're acting out. Your character, you are told by the game rules, congratulations, you've just flipped the table. How are you flipping the table?
That's right downstream from Call of Cthulhu and Pendragon, but nobody would try to say that Call of Cthulhu or Pendragon are not RPGs.
No, heck no.
Right? Like, but it's the same thing.
Right. But then you go over here to Trophy Gold, which is a story game take on dungeon crawling. This is like a rules light. This is based off Blades in the Dark, sort of like a fantasy horror. And this game, you literally get wounds or like conditions or whatever, and you are told explicitly in the rules, if you screw over your friends, you can lower your condition level.
So then I guess one question, just kind of interject myself, would...
Sure, yeah.
So then if we're putting this in terms of like order of operations, let's say, then you've got theme first, mechanics that serve theme. You're kind of switching that order where you're suggesting that maybe in the OSR element that it's mechanics first, build theme from it if you can.
No. It's the same. It's the same order. Theme
same
always.
Order. Okay.
Mechanics always. It's that story games go, I don't want D&D or anything like it. I want to evoke a completely different experience altogether.
Less one size fits all and more, this is the only game mechanics that work for this theme. Kind of like it kind of focuses you, right? So you're not trying to do like one system for everything.
You're not trying to do the Wild West with the BX rules. You're not trying to do World of Darkness with the BX rules, or I don't know, the mid 2000s Canadian sci-fi show Lex with the BX rules. Like, it's just
right.
It's explicit and specific. It's particular, and I think I will say I think it's interesting you mention that the OSR is in denial about theme. In that,
they absolutely are.
But what's interesting is that AD&D, the grandfather of all RPGs, more so than OD&D. I love OD&D, but I think it was still figuring itself out. Like AD&D has an opinion in a way that OD&D doesn't.
Right.
And AD&D's opinion is that you are trying to recreate a specific type of fiction. And Jeffro makes that argument super clear in Appendix N. And he continues to make it anytime the subject comes up, and he's currently active on the internet. He's right. He is. He's completely right. Which is that right. And all of AD&D's mechanics feed that theme. The XP for gold feeds the theme in that it tells you what your character's primary motivation is. Which gold as the primary motivation already puts you in the head of Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. It puts you in the head of Kugel the Conan. It puts you in the head of Conan. But then also, as you continue to play, XP for gold then becomes a problem of logistics. This is where Alchemic Raker and John McGowan talking about encumbrance and how encumbrance is a load-bearing rule for AD&D, because if you ignore encumbrance, suddenly the logistics of hirelings and forward operating bases and mercenaries and holding territory stop mattering. And those are all things that are relevant to the fiction that AD&D is trying to recreate. It's all mandatory, and the claim of the BroSR is, of course, just that AD&D as a game is complete, and no part of it is non-negotiable. If you are trying to create the type of fiction that AD&D is modeled after, you have to use all the rules.
Right.
And ironically, this is how story games are played. I didn't pull the receipts for it, but if you read the introduction to Burning Wheel, Luke Crane straight up tells you, if you hack this or change the rules, you are not playing Burning Wheel. You are playing a different game.
There's actually a series. There was, I don't know anymore because that particular Discord closed down. But until Luke Crane opened up the Burning Wheel Discord server, there was a fan server that was distinct, that was not connected to Crane at all. Matter of fact, most of them hated him, but most of them were assholes too. So if you were ever on that server, that's what I think of you. But the play culture of Burning Wheel was very different than what Luke Crane wanted. Most of them ignored that, and they kind of claimed to still be doing it, even though Luke had said very explicitly, no, that's not Burning Wheel. This is Burning Wheel. And that actually created a rift within the community. Now, granted, Luke Crane's got his own problems, but he was correct there.
Well, absolutely and you see this with Blades in the Dark as well, which is the story game that I have the most experience with. Because for years I had wanted to do like a Thieves Guild type game, and as it turns out, 5th edition is bad for that. And actually,
really?
BX is super bad for that, because BX is weirdly punitive on thieves. Like AD&D actually has a lot going for it in terms of thief characters, but BX is very strangely punitive on thieves. But so coming out of that, because after running 5th Ed and it not working, and I read these story games, but my players aren't willing to try them, so I run them through. We use Lamentations, a BX clone, for a while before I finally just said, no, actually, this is a game about thieves guilds. We're going to play it, and we played Blades in the Dark. And Blades in the Dark is a fascinating game because it took me probably 4 years to run it correctly, because I kept trying to just read the overview of the rules and get like a loose grasp of the core mechanics and then just go. And I kept realizing, oh, I'm not using this rule. And which is why I run into this problem more. I keep running into this problem. Oh, it's because I didn't use this rule. And as it turns out, it's a big, thick book with lots of rules in it, because when you use all those rules, the game functions better and it does what it wants to do better. And this was a huge turning point for me, because I realized that Jonathan Harper and Luke Crane and Vincent Baker are the only designers out there who actually seem to think that mechanics matter and that you have to play a game by the rules in order for it to work. The publishers of Vampire 5th Edition, the publishers of Call of Cthulhu, even the publishers of Pendragon don't have the stones to say, you must play this game with all of the rules or it doesn't work. And this is the central thesis of the BroSR about AD&D. And so I really think that there is a natural continuity. And don't even get me started on the obvious connections between the assumed PvP and intra-party intrigue of story games and Braunstein's. Like, it's the same thing.
Dude. So I got to run. I ran a few campaigns of this. I want to come back to it. At some point, my very sharp criticisms of things like Trophy and a lot of the story games have to come out because, well, anyway, we'll get there. But we're literally in the middle of things, and people are getting ground on, they're getting ground down because the Trophy Gold is a brutal game. It is a brutal, evil game. It will wreck you. And when they realized that the only way for them to get through was to keep sniping at each other, like the instant this group of friends who have known each other for like 6-7 years, so secure, they've been through hell with each other already. They have a kind of an idea of what to do. As soon as they realized that all they had to do to feel better in the game was to troll each other, total chaos, utter chaos for the rest of the game. They're literally trying to get through these puzzles and dungeons and other things, and they would like, okay, as I'm going up, I'm gonna kick him. And you're like, that's a 50-foot drop, and they're like, yeah, he'll be okay. And you're like, well, no, you need him to climb. You need him to climb the ledge.
So this is
So
fascinating.
then I do have one question. I want to kind of pop in.
Sure.
So then, is it? I guess where does it break down? To kind of throw this out there, because when I play something like 5th edition, or I come from it, I wouldn't necessarily consider it a story game in the way that we've been talking, but because something's been dislodged since.
I don't
like
actually think 5th edition is a role-playing game. Like I don't
think of it 5th edition as a game.
Interesting. So then,
because it's a game. I think it's anyway.
Because in my journey, I've gone backwards. I went back and started with AD&D, and that had everything you guys said, and was very complete. And you could even you would say that's a story game, in that sense, correct? Or where
I think
like,
AD&D
I'm looking for that finer.
I don't know. He thinks
sorry,
it
what'd
is.
you say?
I don't know. I don't know because I haven't played it. I don't have any experience working.
I say that AD&D is a story game. Spyder is not familiar enough.
Right.
So, I guess where does it become not? So I think in some initial what causes the confusion is just this initial sense of like, where's the borderline between what the story game is and what it isn't. It sounds like AD&D is a story game based off of how we've put it. It follows a theme. It evokes a theme. Conan, things like that. You get to Blades in the Dark. It evokes this theme, like thievery you mentioned.
It's a Thieves Guild game. Like Blades in the Dark, explicitly a Thieves Guild game.
And it does that really well. So what I think is interesting is, so there's kind of two sticks to this. There is the mechanics incentivizing character behavior, which is that, like, for example, like encumbrance incentivizes a character to get pack mules, and pack mules getting eaten by goblins incentivizes the character to hire mercenaries. And then, well, if I keep hiring these mercenaries and I keep bringing these donkeys to the same spot, maybe I'll put up a palisade wall so that it's easier for us to defend the spot halfway between town and the dungeon, and so on and so forth. And so there's mechanics that incentivize character action, and then there are mechanics that incentivize player action, and these work in synergy to produce the theme and the fiction that you want. In Blades in the Dark, or rather in a Blades derivative game called Copperhead County, which is kind of a Breaking Bad modern gangster crime game that I ran last summer. Copperhead County has every character class has a special ability that they can take, where if they cause problems for the other players in a way that is particular to the type of character that they get extra XP for that session, right? So if your character, the one character, if you self-aggrandize and feed into your own like reputation and ego as a gangster at the expense of the other players, you get extra XP. And it just says that outright, and it dangles that in front. And of course, as soon as my one friend, he's a min-maxer, he's always trying to do the mechanically optimal thing, and so he was always very averse to PvP because he's always very averse to anything that will undermine party cohesion, because he's trying to get the ruby, he's trying to get the reward, the XP, the treasure. But as soon as I said the treasure comes from when you screw over your teammates for your own personal benefit, he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And the game gives you XP if you fail a roll. If you try something and then it doesn't go well, that's when you get XP, not when you succeed. And what that encourages is reckless, sloppy behavior, which is how you get Pulp Fiction situations where the criminals are in over their head and the walls are closing in around them, is they have to make stupid decisions. But how do you get the player to make a stupid decision? You reward him for it. And of course, this is in AD&D too, through the grading system. When Gary says that you should modify their XP by a certain percentage according to how well they played their role as a fighter, thief, cleric, paladin, or whatever, these are like, that's a mechanic that does not incentivize player character behavior. It incentivizes player behavior. So again, like back to AD&D, this is like AD&D is a Powered by the Apocalypse style story game. Like it like just right down to its bones. It has all of the mechanical incentives. It has all of the architecture that would produce Powered by the Apocalypse is there in AD&D. And if I could say that to Ron Edwards personally, I think maybe I could make him cry.
He, by the way, in order to facilitate this dream, he reviews games, as in like you can pay him like a couple of bucks or whatever, and he'll actually like sit down and go over your game with you. So you might be able to sneak that in. I don't know how much it is because he puts it in Finnish currency, and I can't. I didn't go through that. But you know, if you
wait,
if
sorry,
you
is Ron Edwards in Finland?
I don't know. I assume so.
Because so James Rajai, the publisher of Lamentations of the Flame Princess, is also in Finland, and there's a connection there in that James Rajai. When I mentioned there's one person in the OSR who understands the theme of BX, like dungeon crawling D&D, it's Rajai. Rajai talked about
Really?
in one interview he talked. So the Lamentations, the gimmick is basically it is a hammer horror take on D&D.
Yeah.
So it has kind of a Warhammer Black Powder aesthetic. There's a lot of over the top like folk horror and guts and madness and whatever. But the reason he puts that there is because he's like, a dungeon crawl is a horror game. Like if you just think objectively about the first person experience of an adventurer in the dungeon, they're playing Resident Evil. This is a survival horror game. It is about resource management and about like avoiding danger. Like people always talk about how in BX combat is a fail state because the rewards aren't worth the risk, and so you're always trying to like avoid combat encounters and stuff. Like all of this just feeds into BX being a horror game, not from its mechanics and not even necessarily from the experience of the players, but from the perspective of the characters. And so he just made the character perspective explicit in the aesthetics of the game, because he sees what is happening not from the stated goals of the designers, but rather from the implicit reality created by the mechanics.
So, I mean, this might be too simplistic, but then is the distinction character point of view? Like if we're charting these games from like, let's say AD&D to now,
it has to be both. You can't.
Is there if you have like, a game what would you say is like the ratio?
If you have a game that's only from player perspective, that's a board game. And if you have a game that is only from a character perspective, what is it? It's not a game. It's not a game.
It's not a game.
It's a LARP, or maybe it's an immersive exercise. It's not.
Well, maybe character POV is not the right way to put it. Maybe role, like the very basic idea of role play. You're playing a role, not playing a character. Like you are a cleric. You're doing these things. Like, is it that maybe that shift in the script, like the definition where
I think it really is. It is, and like I'm a Hegelian, so I really think it's just a synthesis. Like I really think that this is
it's both.
It is both. It has to be both simultaneously because both things contain each other, which is that the motivations of the character are contained by the motivations of the player and vice versa.
That's actually something that I tried very hard to get right in Crescendo. I know both of you have looked at it at some point or another, and one of the things that I spent a great deal of time working on was making sure that everything kept going back to the beliefs. And I know that sounds obvious, but I took some time to poke at different mechanics so that way, no matter what happened, you were always being put back into the character's head as the player. I was all like if you read the game as this is how you get if you get this synthesis right, what happens is you start to feel as the character, and if you do it really right, there isn't a bleed over. Which bleed is bad. Bleed is very, very, very bad. Bleed is when you feel as the character to a degree that is actually unhealthy. This is one of my biggest criticisms of games like Burning Wheel, actually. because then if something happens to the character, it happens to you. And if you play heavy psychological games like Burning Wheel, you will find that this happens to you. This is a real thing. It does happen to people. The game.
So then, would you say that Burning Wheel, to pick just to kind of grab a specific one,
Yeah.
is veering into dangerous territory in this discussion that we're having? Like, is it veering off the path of righteousness, so to speak?
It can, because it emphasizes. So Burning Wheel's basic idea is you play a belief. If you cause trouble with beliefs, you get Artha. Artha enhances your ability to do cool things in the game. The more you role play the character with the beliefs, and the harder you push into it, the more Artha you get. This sounds like Crescendo until you look at all the subsystems around it. Burning Wheel has a habit, and this is a documented thing. Like I've run into this with a lot of other play groups. There's people on YouTube you can go find. I don't remember them right now. But they find that if you just keep pressing the button in Burning Wheel where you just cause trouble with a belief, and if you don't keep your emotional distance, people will actually start to do it like a rat looking for a pellet. It actually induces some sort of addictive behavior. It can do that. I'm not saying it always will, but if you get the right group of players or the wrong one, you will get into a situation where people stop thinking about the story and they'll go, oh, but that's my pellet. And you're like, no, you're ruining it. Stop it. You're not supposed to care about the pellet that much. Which is part of why I designed Crescendo the way I did. I designed Crescendo so that way you would have to slow down. So that way when you press the button, you'd have to watch the pellet go through the levers and go down, and you'd have to process, like, there's actual rules in there that prevent you from getting the fate point until you say why you think you deserve it. And Ross is correct. This is dangerous territory. But this is where ethical design has to come into play. So if you get a really, really, really strong role-playing game, you are present in the character, as the character, but you're not wrapped up. And if something happens, one way or the other, it doesn't hurt you. Because you're not the character. You're just sort of feeling like the character for a little bit.
You're unlocking a thought here. A drum that I've been beating the last couple months is that basically all American art is Gothic. And
heck yeah.
Which is to say Westerns are Gothic, and noir is Gothic, and police procedurals are Gothic. And
on the same page.
Obviously Stephen King is on. But what I mean by that is not like that they're all spooky, but rather that they all contend with Burke's Sublime. And with like a crash course on that. And I talked about this when I said I did a video last summer called Cosmic Horror Isn't Real. And I maintain that H.P. Lovecraft isn't actually different. Like Cthulhu is not different than Dracula. It's not a different category. It's not a new genre. It's the same thing.
Sure.
And my basic point of that, and this comes from Zach S., the designer of my favorite horror game, Demon City, and the designer of many fine OSR adventure modules. But in a podcast, Zach was talking about Lovecraft and how when you read at the Mountains of Madness, there's a vivisection where the scientists have been cut open by the aliens, they've been dissected and whatever, and objectively that would be a really visceral, gross, gory situation, and Lovecraft pulls back. He doesn't tell you the details. He just implies that that there's this horrible, gory thing that's happened. And with Shadow over Innsmouth, he doesn't describe a person copulating with a fish monster. He just says there are these people who have fish monster DNA, and how they get it is and he always pulls back from the squicky thing. And what that results in is that the horror exists not in the thing that is scary, but in the distance between you and the scary thing. the removal between you and the scary thing. And this goes straight to Burke with the Sublime when he says the reason that we can be
Burke, here we are.
If we're in a ski lodge and we look across the valley and there's an avalanche on the mountain across from us, we love it. We're taking it in. It's beautiful. It's enthralling. If we were there on the mountain, we would not be enjoying ourselves. We would not enjoy the splendor and beauty of the avalanche. We would be horrified. And this is the difference between like the discomfort that you experience if you get too into true crime versus the experience of like fictional police procedural stuff, which is that the removal, the distance between you and the thing is actually the point. The point of the object of horror is not the point. The space between you and the horror is the point. And this applies across the board in that the Western is not actually about the experience of living in the Wild West, which had all its problems, but appreciating the distance and enjoying the space that exists between you, the modern person, and the cowboy on the Wild West. And likewise, now talking RPG mechanics, it's not about the character, it's about the space between you and the character. It's about being able to you're inhabiting the character not to experience being them, but rather to gain a stronger understanding of them that lets you enjoy the gap between you and it.
Yep.
Yep.
And there are some games, especially in the story game genre, and this is one of my many criticisms of the genre. Like, I have some very, very, very sharp opinions on it, and that's one of my biggest ones, if not the biggest one, is that there's moments where you're like, hold up, too close, back up, but please back up,
which makes me then circle back to Blades in the Dark, in that I think Blades in the Dark strikes a really wonderful balance with this, I think the biggest thing is two mechanics. The first, Blades in the Dark has a dice pool system, and you are on even an unlikely thing generally going to be 50% likely to succeed, which seems extremely generous, but the majority of successes are partial, which is that you get what you want, but X, right? You get what you want, you pick the lock, but it cracks and there's a sound and a guard is on his way. Or so you have these parts. It means that the players are always succeeding and they feel confident, and so there's that dopamine hit of reward of like, yeah, we're making progress, we're getting somewhere. But every time they get somewhere, there's a little fire that has been lit that they have to keep put out, and so that activates like kind of this tactics. Without having minis on the board, it activates that tactical wargaming mind, because you're trying to manage the logistics of this increasingly botched heist, right? But additionally, the other thing that Blades has going for it is and this is something that I've come around on. I really didn't like it initially, but I have made peace with it, which is the flashback mechanic. What I did not like about the flashback mechanic. What I didn't like about it is that it was non-diegetic. I did not like that it was. I didn't like that it was basically, it put the player into the writer's room. It pulls the player out of the head of the character and puts them into the head of somebody writing that character. But I realize now is that the flashback allows you to operate more efficiently as the character. It allows you to more accurately represent the competency of the character, which, John, if you haven't played Blaze in the Dark, the flashback mechanic lets you expend a finite resource you have called stress to do the Ocean's 11 thing, where like it reveals that actually prior to the job, you as the character have set something up. And so you then flash back to a scene prior to the job where you're trying to set something up, and you'll roll an action roll. And if you succeed on the action roll, so the process becomes the same. The player wants something, he makes a skill test, and if he succeeds, then he gets what he wants. But it allows them to play with chronology. It allows them to, and this allows you to have characters that have instead of spending the first 3 hours of your session planning your heist, You just start the heist, and the players will
do it live.
The players will plan it retroactively as they play. But I've come to realize that actually this deepens the player's relationship to the character, but in a way that is paternalistic and at arm's length, which I think is healthier and actually more sustainable for long-term play.
Still has that distance that you're alluding to with the avalanche thing. So then I guess I would have to ask, is then Blades in the Dark the definitive text? And like if someone were to say what's story gaming, Blades in the Dark, is that the
I would
one?
say Blades in the Dark is, I think, the easiest for a person to break into. It is very user friendly, especially from a player side, because the dice mechanic doesn't have you do any math, and it has you rolling the same type of dice for everything you do. Like that is very forgiving.
Figure it out so fast.
And like your character sheet has instructions for everything you need to do, and all your special abilities have their description on the character sheet. Like it's just an extremely user friendly, and it lacks certain mechanical texture that I would like from a more robust game, but as an entry point to the genre, it's so good.
So to chart that, if Blades is the accessible, the beginning, the start to this, like, is there a definitive one, like an end point? Where's the one? Is there the one text to rule them all in terms of what like story gaming is? If we've already
World.
Like Apocalypse World,
like
I mean,
like Apocalypse World wrote the rules on. It defined the objectives for these types of games. It set the standard. It established the play to find out perspective, which again, I must beat this drum. Play to find out is the guiding principle of story games, and it is explicitly anti-railroad and anti-prep. It is not about running players through a novel. Play to find out appears in. Hold on, I'm going to share again. Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
And you can't.
We got to make good on bringing some receipts that are visual.
You can't stop me here. So we scroll back. Okay, I've shared it.
After you're
right
one
here.
second. After you're done, I have an example to sort of devil's advocate, but it's also a steel man. So you'll see. Just
okay. This is an excerpt from Apocalypse World. The Master of Ceremonies is just the world, the title they give for the Game Master. And it gives you a set of instructions, which is unusual for of how you're supposed to run the game, which is unusual for most GM sections, which usually just say you should do whatever works for you and your table. But
a long way to play.
So here, right here, the three make the world seem real, make the players' lives not boring, play to find out what happens. Play to find out what happens. And right here, look right here, was it? It's not, for instance, your agenda to make the players lose, or to deny them what they want, or to punish them, or to control them, or to get them through your pre-planned storyline. Do not pre-plan a storyline, and I'm not effing around. It is not your job to put the characters in double binds or dead ends or yank the rug out from under their feet. Go chasing after any of that, and you'll wind up with a boring game. That makes Apocalypse World seem contrived, and you'll be pre-deciding what happens by yourself, not playing to find out. Play to find out. There's a certain discipline you need in order to MC Apocalypse World. You have to commit yourself to the game's fiction's own internal logic and causality, driven by the player characters. You have to open yourself to caring what happens, but when it comes time to say what happens, you have to set what you hope for aside. This is Bro SR. This is
right. It is. It is. It absolutely is.
No amount of garbage 30-page Powered by the Apocalypse hacks can hide the fact that Baker figured it out. He cracked the code.
He did. Yeah, absolutely.
And so Apocalypse World, specifically Apocalypse World First Edition, I would say, is the urtext, because Apocalypse World Second Edition is more user-friendly, but at the cost of making these design principles explicit.
So you're saying it takes away some of those explicit...
Yeah, it has less of Vincent Baker hitting you in the face saying, do it right or I'll hurt you. So I had a thing actually before we move forward, way back. How can I pull up? I had to step away. This comment here. Am I allowed to make?
They had to step away.
Had
This
to step
one?
away because you envision a PvP. Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Could you envision a Powered by the Apocalypse honed for PvP bronze sign play? I have taken the core mechanic of Blade in the Dark, which is derived from Powered by the Apocalypse. I've taken that core mechanic, that dice pool sliding scale of success mechanic, and I've used it to run Bronstein games, both in play by post and live.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Good.
extremely flexible, and it's a really easy way to have players with differing levels of skill while still feeling like power, like having someone running a faction that's very powerful and someone running an underdog faction, and having them both feel like they can do stuff that's meaningful. It's so yeah, and I described it in detail a little while ago when I was on Random Table with Kelsey Dion, the Shadow Deck designer, with Harmony Ginger and Scott Over Mike and all them. We were talking about Bronsteins, and I described my system for it, which is players have a power rating for their faction from 1 to 5, and they have a number of 6-sided dice each turn according to their power level, and they can assign those dice to actions. You roll those dice. On a 4 or 5, it's a partial success. On a 6, it's a full success. It's very flexible, and it means if I'm a player with a tier rating of 5, then I can roll 5 dice, and I'm extremely likely to succeed at what I want.
Oh, yeah.
Or I could be very unlikely to succeed at lots of different things. But at the end of the day, it's not like I'm able to succeed at larger things. It's just that I'm more likely to succeed. And it kind of flattens the playing field and allows for multi-layered play where one person might be running the entire police precinct and another person's running a journalist, right? You can have that very, it works. Basically, actually, yeah, these mechanics absolutely work for Bronsteins because I've done it. I did it with the Living Earth guys last winter, and it was awesome, and ended with an entire city block being exploded in a hostile takeover of gang territory.
Yep.
So then, from that, Spyder, you said you had a steel man.
Yeah, sort of. So these.
Come on, take me down. See if you can.
Well, no. I'm not. I'm actually about to prove your point, but I'm going to go at it from
Many people find themselves in that situation.
Not very humble. So these are both. So I've been talking about Trophy Gold. This other game, which is one of my favorites that I haven't played in way too long, is Misspent Youth, which is golly, this thing's old. But it's about a bunch of teenagers taking down a dystopian, fascist future. It's your usual left-wing, thing. But what they do in the game is very interesting. The sessions are run on a script explicitly. It's still a story game. We're getting there because this is really cool. So it's run using a formula, or I'm completely blanking on the word, of course. So each episode has 7 acts to it. 7, no more, no less. This is what makes up an episode. If you don't like it, that's too bad. Don't play the game. The first one is What's Up, which is when you set up whatever the big conflict is going to be that session. The second one is Fighting Back, where you actually go and try and take care of it. 3 is Heating Up, where, the authority comes after you. 4 is We Won, where it looks like you won. It's exactly as it sounds. Scene 5, We're fucked. Turns out the authority wasn't quite beaten. Scene 6 is Who Wins, and that's where it actually all comes down to the wire. And then scene 7, Dust Settles, which is your epilogue. Now, this sounds like a railroad. But what they do, at the very beginning of the session, they have what are called friendship questions. And it is almost exactly as it sounds. This is before online gaming became a thing. You turn to the guy to your left, you ask a question. The guy to your left answers the question. The GM writes it down. Question and answer. Boom. Okay. Everybody's turning to their left and doing this. So there's if you have 3 people, it's 6 different questions. If you have 4 people, which is optimal, you have 8. at the beginning of every one of these scenes that I was telling you about, the group picks one of these question answer pairings, and that's what the scene is about. So if you turn to the guy to your left and you're like, why didn't you sleep with me last night? And the other guy says, well, because I'm in love with over here. And if, you get to the we're fucked one, all of a sudden the GM goes, we should do that one. And everyone goes, no, I don't want to do that one in the we're fucked one. And you're like, oh, that's wonderful, but that's what we're doing. So in comes this whole scene where all of a sudden, this love triangle is put in the center of this huge epic conflict, and it's coming. The big epic conflict is coming. That everyone is about to lose, or they might lose, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, this little interpersonal question, we're going to drop it right here. And it blows up, and nobody knows where it goes.
So it still kind of follows the play to find out what happens.
Right. Wait a minute. This is the Maltese Falcon. This is where in the Maltese Falcon, the dead body of Sam Spade's partner and the actual Maltese Falcon itself is not the important part of the story. Right. It's what everyone knows it's there, and it seems to be what the story is about. Like the story is like follows the beats of looking for the bird and looking for the murderer of Sam Spade's partner. But the actual story itself is about Sam interacting with all these characters and their schemes and double crosses and whatever.
Yep. And everybody sets it up everybody sets up all the questions at the beginning. Everybody knows what's coming. And then somebody goes, why don't we take that one? Everyone's like, oh God, no. And you're like, hey, yeah, come here. We're going to put it in here. We're just going to see what blows up. So like, even in cases, and Trophy Gold is actually like, here's how.
Yeah, show us the stuff. Yeah.
1 second. This is core rules. That's the core rules.
Mm-hmm.
These are all the adventures they made for the game, including a mega dungeon in the back. This actually has dungeons. They're very good dungeons. But the way that the dungeons are designed, they're more of these odd flowcharts, sort of. And there are ways baked into the player mechanics that force you to break out of them. And the flowchart is just like, these things could be in the room, but when the player asks a question and rolls dice, and he rolls stupidly, because in Trophy Gold, you actually, every time you ask a question, there isn't a wandering monster table in this game. There's players asking questions. You roll your dice. It's like Blades in the Dark with all of the, graduated stuff. And depending upon what you roll is what the GM answers. And he's got this handy little flowchart that tells him what could be in that room. So you've got this structure, and everybody knows there's a structure, right? They may not know all the structure because you're trying to do an old school dungeon crawl. So nobody knows what's actually in the dungeon except for the GM. But the GM is constantly having to invent things to put into the dungeon. He's not even allowed to name the creatures. So, like, playing to find out doesn't even necessarily mean no prep. Because, again, they assume that you're going to need all of this. They assume that you want all of this. Because that way you don't have to make your own. But you can, and they tell you how. But it still goes off the rails. And I've run the same adventure with like 3 different groups, and it comes out totally different every time. Even with the same basic, like, beats in there, it's still so wildly different that it's just like, okay, well, whatever. So, like, play to find out does not preclude, it doesn't preclude simulation. It just says simulation is for player agency. Simulation serves player agency as opposed to simulation overriding player agency. So story games are really, like, even when you get to the point where you're like, oh yay, it's a dungeon crawling game, I can run Hester's Mill 10 different times with the same group of 5 people, and it would be ridiculously different every time, even if they played the same characters. Like they'd reset it. Like they would go, oh, put it back.
So then I guess
your
go ahead, sorry.
Your invocation of simulation has unlocked something. Everything that I have said thus far about story games and AD&D, that AD&D is of the same stuff that Apocalypse World is. They basically, story games are RPGs, and games that don't resemble that are not RPGs. If AD&D is a story game, for all the reasons that I've given, in particular the marriage of player motivation and character motivation overlapping, like having mechanics that incentivize the players to act in ways that incentivize the characters towards certain themes. Axe is a story game.
I've tried to avoid telling that to Alexander this whole
Because
time.
then Axe, like literally it says it in the title, Adventurer Conquer King. This is a game about being a adventurer who gathers an army and seizes a kingdom and then takes that kingdom to the four corners of the earth. It is a game with a intended thematic narrative flow, and it has mechanics that incentivize player behavior towards that. And it even, if you read the judge's journal, when he lays out the rules for the building your sandbox, he's like, you need to make sure that you include these variables to make sure that players will do the things that you want them to towards the theme of. And this all clicks because at the start of the stream, we started. Look what arrived in the mail, but the treasure tome that I had back. The Axe.
What? I've been waiting for mine. Oh my God.
It showed up literally like at the start of the stream. I muted so that I could open the bed. And so,
Chris.
But you mentioned simulation and like.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's who I was thinking of.
Like, no, this powered by the Apocalypse World is a simulationist game.
It is.
Or conversely. Axe is a story game.
So,
can we send that with a time marker to?
It is. But of course, this all just boils down to, like your reductive, like dialectic structure of you have thing and you have opposition to thing, but they necessarily contain each other in their definitions and are therefore part of the same unity.
Right.
So I guess in some ways, kind of what we've roundaboutly come to
Aristotle was right about everything.
We've come to that it's these RPGs, like it's a story game. That I've been so focused on trying to find a difference. What's the border here? But it can't be an RPG without story game.
If it's not a story game, it's not. If it's not a story game, it's not an RPG. It's a board game with beer and pretzels.
It's also fun.
Which is fun. Like, listen, I love Risk, dude. I love America.
You mentioned board games, and this always comes up when I mention that I'm not a huge board game fan compared to TTRPG fan. I like to do you can get me to do any sort of TRPG, just say hi and be like, great. But then board games is like, well, what are the rules? What do we have to do? But I've never been able to put word to the distinction here. So that you mentioned board games, like if it's not this, it's a board game. How you said it is RPGs, right? Is that kind of what we're saying?
Which is why I will say that I think that I do think that Fifth Ed is a board game. And the reason I say that,
that's still generous.
No. Hey, listen, I'm playing in my brother's running a Fifth Ed game for us, and I'm happen to be having a lovely time. But I'm having a lovely time in the same way that I have a lovely time when I play Fortress America or Settlers of Catan.
So then I guess is then wargaming essentially board gaming, or does wargaming get to share in the world?
If you're doing it the way that the great prophet Tony Bath, peace be upon him, if you're wargaming like Tony Bath, then you're story gaming. But if you're wargaming like Games Workshop after they kicked out Rick Priestley, then yeah, you're playing a board game. Right, like, and this has been the complaint that the Broasar has had about wargaming, is that it's all just about like balanced tournament play with L-shaped ruins, moving your minis around. There's no campaign, there's no continuity, there's no reason for these battles to happen. And Tony Bath, like, Ancient Wargaming is a textbook on conflict and generative story and having plots and narratives that emerge as a matter of course from gameplay that you look back afterwards, as opposed to planning out ahead of time.
Right.
Tony Bath has rules for generating the personalities of his generals, not from are they good leaders, are they strong in battle, but like are they prone to sleeping with their boss's wife, are they like, that's in Tony Bath's Ancient Wargaming, right? Like it's like
Yes.
the interpersonal drama and the machinations, and like he wanted a believable world that was populated by people with actual motives. And if you think like that, 40K isn't for you. But also but sorry,
I love it. I just love it. There's just this hammer coming down, and I'm just enjoying that.
But also, if you don't think like that, you are playing AD&D and chainmail wrong. You are wargaming wrong if you don't think that way. It's all the same. It's all the same hobby, because it's all the same act, which is what I'm going to say it. I'm going to say the word. It's all subcreation. It's all it's all about engaging in what I do believe to be the divinely inspired act of modeling reality in microcosm. And that comes down to being honest about all of the variables that are at play there. And also, any good subcreated world has an argument behind it. Lord of the Rings isn't good because Tolkien wrote a bunch of history in the Silmarillion. Lord of the Rings is good because Tolkien was trying to argue something. He had a point to make. He had a theme. And the theme wasn't triumph of good over evil. The theme was God will make bad things into good things. That's the theme of Lord of the Rings, right? And that's the argument that is being made by Lord of the Rings. And that's why Lord of the Rings is good. If it was just about an underdog or like endurance or like perseverance, like those aren't themes. Those are LinkedIn descriptors. Like you have to be and so a story game makes the same thing. The story game is trying to say something.
Oh yes.
It's trying to take you to a specific place. It wants you to be an adventurer, a conqueror, and a king.
So then to kind of put this together, it's a game. A story gaming is a game. It's a game that makes an argument, and you have to play to find out what happens. That argument. If we're putting these together,
no, not quite.
No,
a story game is a game that wants you to engage with a specific idea or motif or theme, and it puts you in a position where you can't resist that theme. The mechanics will, if you engage honestly with the game's mechanics, you will arrive at that theme regardless. In the same way that if you read The Lord of the Rings in good faith, you will arrive at that theme. If you watch Treasure of the Sierra Madre in good faith, you will arrive at the theme. That Humphrey Bogart is a bastard.
I do like that. Can't resist. You can't resist your way to the theme, to the argument, to the idea.
And so it's not about intentionally steering yourself towards there. It's about letting yourself be taken there as a matter of course by the mechanics of the game.
Yeah. No, we had I just finished a crescendo epic, and crescendo's message is more or less that if you're going to, it's more or less Frank Herbert's statement. The world was afflicted with a hero, which is this idea that.
Are you wrong about Dune?
I'm literally quoting the book.
Do we need to follow up on another stream of receipts for Dune? Because I'm willing to do that.
I'm quoting the book. What do you want?
I don't care if you're quoting the book. Frank Herbert was wrong about the book.
Moving on, because Wolf comes to the same conclusions and he's right. But the point being that you can't be a hero and not make a mess. You have, like, it's part of being a hero is making a mess.
Okay, no, I can abide this. You're not wrong about Dune.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I bestow this upon you.
Um, but we're like, but the whole point with Crescendo is having to accept that as you are trying to go do the things that you think are good, notice that you think are good. I didn't say they were good. As you're going, the rules force you to break things violently over and over. There is no like you're in the middle of doing something and you're like, I have to go do this thing, and then all of a sudden the whole world just starts falling apart on you because you stomped your foot. And so it's a bigger, more primal theme than a lot of story games, which is another one of my many criticisms of story gaming. But essentially,
sorry, is your criticism that story games are too small in their stakes?
I think they get too specific. I think they get too specific in their stakes. So, like, for instance, I mean, come on, the name Thirsty Sword Lesbians. Really?
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Really?
Well, it's
Seriously?
like there's a new one that just came out from the Gauntlet crew, Cable Access.
Ooh,
which is
I usually love their stuff.
It's the Between, but as a creepypasta. Analog horror, but the Between.
Oh, that one, I backed it. That looked cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
like
still,
it's hyper niche.
It's not just that it's hyper niche. It's that, so like, for instance, what's a good dip? Okay, so Trophy Gold. This right here is where Trophy Gold is specifically fantasy horror. Trophy Gold is specifically and irreducibly, like, you cannot get around it. You cannot get around that going out into the forest to get treasure is a bad thing. Because the game assumes, and it openly tells you this, like, somewhere, I can look it up in a minute, that you're a loser. You're a loser. You're a has-been. You are out in the forest because you think that it's the quickest way to get what you think you want. And the game goes to great lengths to keep you from the thing that you think you want, and then punishes you every single time you get closer. And it does it in some really, really, really mean ways.
Have you ever seen Treasure of the Sierra Madre?
I have not. I have not seen it.
It's Humphrey Bogart gold prospecting, and that's what it's about.
Okay, yep. But, like, as a game, the problem is that that's too small. It's too small of a thing. Like, at least to me it is, because no matter what, you can't get around it. You can't grapple with it. You either accept the thing, or you don't accept the thing, which is I don't have good words. It's a very binary on or off switch. You either do it or you don't. A lot of my favorite story games, like Burning Wheel, like Hearts of Wulin, instead say the theme is the thing we keep kicking you in the butt with. That's the thing we keep okay, you're doing your thing, but we're going to visit this on the top of your head, and you better, well, sorry, that's just how it goes. And so instead of dictating what must happen, it sends things at you that you then have to grapple with. And so the theme isn't a lot of the more politically minded story games. A lot of the much more politically minded story games, of which there are many. They are legion.
So to kind of bring this to the kind of we could talk about this forever. I'm noticing. It's like, goodness, you warned me. I didn't believe you. But
told you.
If we're kind of wrapping this up, do we have? We've mentioned a bunch of different story games, different books, materials, references. Is there a list, a master list that anyone who's watching this who is like, okay, I need to just buckle down and get started with this? You mentioned that, like, what was it? Blaze in the Dark was an entry point. So then if you're building out a list of things to follow, like...
Okay,
What's that list?
Here's what you should do. Is you should go, if you Google Dogs in the Vineyard PDF, the game is out of print, but if you Google Dogs in the Vineyard PDF, it's right there. It's the very first result. And you don't need to read the mechanics for the game because they suck, and I'll die on that hill.
You will die on that hill. I will make sure of it.
He'll die on that boot hill.
I love that game. Leave it alone.
No, I want to love that game. I want to love that game, but it's bad.
Leave my baby alone.
But you read the rules for the Game Master, and specifically for town creation. So Dogs in the Vineyard, you're circuit riding lawgivers in this Mormon Wild West, and each session is a town with a problem. You ride into town, you deliver the mail, you baptize a couple babies, and wouldn't you know, there's something weird going on. There's something weird going on in this town, and then you solve it.
This is what it is.
And that's the structure of the game. The rules for creating the town are, you could use those rules and make a Bronstein over and over again. Or you could make a Bronstein scenario over and over and over again using the town creation rules from Dogs in the Vineyard. And it is a masterclass in thinking about prep and world building for a GM from the perspective of this kind of frame of mind, this thematic play to find out frame of mind. And in particular, another maxim that you'll hear a lot from Baker: don't prep plots, prep scenarios, which is to say, create a situation where something is wrong and lots of things could happen, and then drop the players in and see what does happen, right? So Dogs in the Vineyard, you can find the PDF for free, and it's great. I would say that like Blades in the Dark, the nice thing about Blades in the Dark is that mechanically, you obviously you need to read the rule book to understand how to play the game. So you need a copy of the rules, but on the player's side, it is not like D&D where you have to share the player's handbook and, I need to update my spell list. Could you give me the book? Right. The player's side, 100% of the player information is on their character sheet. Everything they need to know about their character is on their character sheet. It's very, very high density information design. And so it's super, super easy. Like I remember last summer, I was running a Blades in the Dark game, the Copperhead County, the modern crime version. And a buddy was in from the opposite side of the country. He came in from Western Canada. He was in for a week. I say, hey, we got our game this Wednesday. You can drop in. And he shows up. I hand him his character sheet, and he immediately is just able to play. Like, he doesn't need, like, really any introduction at all. It's
Blades is fantastic.
It's super user-friendly.
Very much.
And, I mean, the vibes, if you've ever played, I don't know if you're a video game person at all. If you've ever played Dishonored, that's it. It's a steampunk, like gothic fantasy city, and I think Macros would appreciate the design of, in the same way that like your Axe Wilderness is designed specifically to incentivize players to take over because it's like mismanaged and dangerous, and somebody needs to take control. In the same way, Blades is an intentional powder keg in that you have a city that is riddled with corruption and crime. But also, you can't murder anybody because there are magical feds that will come and kill you if you do. Yes. And you can't leave because it's a post-apocalyptic setting where the city is protected by a lightning barrier, but leaving the city will get you possessed by ghosts and dead. And so you get this situation where the players are always trying to get away with corruption and crime without going overboard and killing anyone, knowing that there's no escape. They can't skip town and wait for the heat to clear off. And so you have the lore being designed specifically to force the players into a particular set of circumstances. Blades is it's just good. It's just a good game.
It really is.
Which makes me loath to admit because Evil Hat is such an evil company. But
I just thought of dying off them, so I have no room to comment.
Yeah.
So then, what was it? Dogs in the Vineyard.
Dogs in the Vineyard
for prepping, just kind of getting the idea, like the whole, like kind of getting the gist of things.
It's also just extremely conversational. You can read the entire PDF in a single sitting because Vincent Baker has such an approachable, casual way of writing. You can just read it. It's like he's talking.
So then that gives you the idea, and then Blades puts this kind of idea into action in terms of how you're playing it.
Like, oh wow, there's a whole new way I could play, but I just don't really understand how to do it. And these dice mechanics suck so much. How am I ever going to play?
Stop it!
So-
I will
so
drive.
then-
And then you open Blades, and you're like, "Oh, here is a coherently designed operations manual that will let me play the game properly."
So then the third game in this, like, so if we're going down the list, we got Dogs in the Vineyard, Blades, and then Burning Wheel.
I would actually say if basically after
I was
Blades,
joking about that one, sort of, just because you mentioned it's a little bit advanced.
I think after Blades, if you play
Trying to
Blades,
think
I
of-
think that what you should then do is to read Dogs in the Vineyard, you play Blades in the Dark, and then you go back and you play your conventional RPG of choice, Call of Cthulhu or D&D or
That's
whatever,
actually-
and you see when I went back to running, I ran. I actually, at the start of my Bro SR journey, I swore off Blades in the Dark, and I talked about all the problems I had with it. I complained about it, and I said I'm going to play OD&D from now on. And I went and I did the one-to-one time Bro SR style play, and I was immediately confronted with how much Blades had rewired my brain as a game master, and how it had changed the way that I approached the game in a way that is actually more in line with the principles that Gary describes in the rules.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It made me a better GM, and it made
To
me
just
a better.
read and play
It
it,
made
yeah.
me a better AD&D dungeon master after having played Blades in the Dark.
And
because
Huh.
because the principles are the same. Because it's the
right,
same.
they are identical. They're actually the same. I think I think if you're looking for a third story game, like if we're going with, if we're already going with medium crunch weight, which is kind of what it sounds like, I would be tempted to say Burning Wheel.
You always
Because
do
if you're-
Apocalypse World too.
yeah, you could go either way. Burning Wheel's my baby, so but it's more about at that point it's rewired your, like, I have a friend of mine who doesn't play story games anymore. Like, it's not something that he does. He's found Genesis Star Wars, and that's it. That's his thing. And when I asked him how he played the game, he's like, "Oh, I just pull out Apocalypse World and I just prep from there." And
Like
and it just does it, and so like it rewires your brain so fundamentally and in such a good way that, like, the third one, it could be Apocalypse World, it could be Burning Wheel. I would be tempted. I would personally be tempted to, like, suggest something like Iron Sworn, because Iron Sworn is where
I bounced off that one so hard. I just couldn't.
Okay then. Iron Sworn is more of a. Iron Sworn starts introducing you to other concepts like GM-less play and solo play, and it does those things, at least from its reputation. I've done a little bit of it. I bounced off it because I already had things I was attached to. So it's like, here, we'll scratch the itch. I'm like, that's been scratched for years. I don't need you to do that. Thank you. But I know of people who swear by Iron Sworn, pun not intended, and they
You
just
can't.
go,
I'm a big solo game guy, and you can't talk about solo games without people recommending Iron Sworn. And I'm like, listen, I don't want to print the cards off, okay? I just want to roll my dice and move my mice. Nobody gets hurt.
Roll the dice, move the mice.
That's not
Is that a
how that
VeggieTales reference? I think it might be.
I don't know, actually.
But, like, after that point, it kind of depends on what you want to do. Because unlike most of the old, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say maybe this list that we've come up with, this order. By that point, you're gonna come up with the idea of what you want to do, what you want to move to from this, because like you guys were saying, it's gonna rewire your brain by the time you get to Blades, and so you're thinking a little bit differently from, let's just say, kind of how things are conventionally done right now, or even how things are, the ruts that we're all in.
Remember it.
If I was to make some suggestions for games that are conventionally designed but lend themselves well to this mindset, I would also say Delta Green.
Okay, yeah.
Which is like Call of Cthulhu but a functional game. I'm sorry, Sandy, I love you, but like there's so many problems with Call of Cthulhu. On what planet are you playing a game about academic investigators who only have a 40% chance to find something in the library? It's just so wrong. It's just so wrong. It's yeah. Anyways, but Delta Green does this thing where it tethers your character to and NPCs who are emotionally significant to your character as anchors for not going insane. And basically, what the game does is you can minimize the damage that your sanity loss is doing to your character by offloading that trauma and that stress onto your loved ones. Basically, you take it out on your loved ones and your character will live longer. And so you're like mechanically rewarded for gradually alienating your family as a federal agent against the dark forces of Cthulhu. And so it works. Like it works. On another end, I would say that the I can't believe I'm saying this. The chapter on metaphysics from the horror RPG I mentioned earlier, Demon City by Zach Smith.
Oh, okay.
It has a chapter called The Metaphysics of Demon City, and the advice on game mastering for mysteries and investigation in there tether themselves really, really well to this kind of play to find out mindset, but also to this frame of mind where it's like we're trying to attain a certain fiction here. There's a great little section where he asks what happens when it stops being scary. Like you're running a horror game and they're up against a ghost, and then next week they're up against a vampire, and like eventually, like there's only so many times that you can confront eldritch horrors before the character would get numb to it and stop being scared by it all the time. And so he provides like some options for that. Like how do you pressure valve that? You could just have shorter campaigns. You could ramp up the intensity, start with a murder and then a serial killer and then a cult of serial killers and then a vampire. Like you could try and ramp up the horror, which is harder to do and requires a lot of planning. He says you could just accept the fact that the players aren't scared anymore and do a Hellboy game. Like Hellboy is a fine comic, but like no one has under any illusions that Hellboy is scared of the monsters he shoots at.
Right.
Or perhaps or you just turn everything up to 11 and start knocking characters off every 2 sessions so that no character ever gets inured to the horror. But like he basically the advice that he gives in that book is masterful, and it really does dovetail really well with the principles that you see in Dogs of the Vineyard in Apocalypse World. I will also say that if you read the PDF and you think it's a good game, you should pick it up because they did a print run after a very long Kickstarter, and for a lot of reasons, it's very unlikely that Demon City will ever have a second print run. So if you don't grab it now, you probably won't ever be able to get it again.
Excuse me.
So then this actually kind of brings us to you two and the games that you are working on.
Yeah, sure.
Go Night Danger.
As a sort of like, let's make this kind of selling yourselves in a way, like making it kind of a part of this whole thing.
My game's free, so.
Well, you've got Crescendo, and then you've got
Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes. So from everything we've talked about, kind of bring your games into this if you can, and kind of just talk about them. I'm actually very curious about what you guys have to say regarding, especially since we've had this big conversation. Mm-hmm. Now with that in mind, Crescendo. Now with that in mind, Snake Eyes. I'm very curious to see talk to me about your games from that point of view of this conversation.
Do you want to go first there?
I guess.
Mostly because I need to go out and get a glass of water, so I'll be right back.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, of course. So Crescendo is a very, very, very odd duck story game. It is a profoundly weird story game. Even for story games, it is a weird game. So I'm so bad at pitches. Ross has laughed at me about this so much. We'll have like a 4-hour long conversation and he'll be like, in 3 sentences, he'll sum up like 4 hours of me ranting. I'll just be like, what the? Just contact Ross. But Crescendo is meant to emulate the mythic fantasy of Gene Wolfe. So it is like it is meant to be this like deeply psychological, very meaningful, serious but not grave. There's a difference. Like it's a serious game, but you know, you're gonna laugh and joke. I mean, it's a fun game, but it's got kind of more of a serious bent on it. Players, for the moment, we'll get to that in a minute. Up to 3 players can play with your Weaver. The players make heroes who have what are called beliefs. Beliefs are exactly as you think they are. Like you've got a colloquial meaning in the back of your head. Yeah, that's it. You know, it's the 3 things that hero is willing to burn the world down for. It's like, nope, this is what I think, and I'm gonna and I cannot contradict it. And so heroes are different than normal people because they can't back down on what they believe. The rest of us are cowards. Heroes can't really be cowards. And so there's a mechanic in there called hitting the books. Everybody has their journal. Everybody has a journal because everybody should be writing down everything that happens in their RPG campaigns and not making their GM do it.
You can clip that and make that just the thing.
Mm-hmm. It pisses me off. It pisses me off a lot. I see all of you. I see all of you not doing it. Well,
I've been taking notes for this stream. I've been taking notes on this stream. I'm like,
I'm not talking to you. So there's this journal. Every player has, everybody in the game has their own journal. So you're all recording your stuff. Okay, that's also true. Crescendo accomplishes what people say they want from modern D&D. It actually does it. But it does it by having these journals, which you put your information in. You know, as you're playing the game, you're putting information in the journal. There's a mechanic called hitting the books. Everybody opens up their books to a random page, puts their finger down, closes, you know, and then they read off what they landed on, however as much or little as they want. Some people will read whole paragraphs, some people won't. They'll read a word, whatever they want to do. And the Weaver takes all of this information and makes it into either a plot twist or just whatever information you need. There's also a way of limiting the Weaver from doing too many big things at once that are in the game now called the consequence pool, but that's not like, just know that for the moment the Weaver doesn't swing for the fences all the time. He literally can't do it. So this is important. So what happens when you're playing this game is that this eerie coherence starts to build. You get to about session 20, and no, before then, probably session 12, and the convergences that Jeffro was talking about in the entirety of Winning Secrets, dude, I'm doing that shit by session 12, and it's awesome. Things start piling up, people keep making consequences, and they just snowball through. The game does have an ending. I programmed an ending into each epic, as they're called. When the players when the heroes are no longer attached to their beliefs, not to their particular beliefs, but to beliefs, when they're just, I'm the big epic fantasy hero, which does happen eventually. Eventually, you kind of work out your problems and you kind of figure out your brain damage, and now you're just the hero. You then become a legend. And then you find out at the very end of the game, which can take up to 30 or 40 sessions. Actually, I'm about to start one in June that I'm hoping will go for 60 plus. I'm swinging for 70, which will take, 2.5, 3 years. It's fine. But at that point, actually, no, it'll be more than that. Oh, dear God. That's more like 120. Moving on. So at the very end, the heroes randomly determine why they're a legend. You got this big old notebook, and you hit the books one last time, and you find out. Nobody knows about what's in your notebook. It's that one thing that you did that everybody else remembers you for. And you went through them, like, and the players aren't attached to that. That goes back to the bleed over. So that's my game. It's large. I put it
large
back
and in charge.
It's large. It's also going back into development because Jeffro and B-Dubs and Rule of Thule are right. And I hate saying that because every time I talk to B-Dubs, I kind of want to just scream existentially into the dark.
He's one of the best in the game. Like, he is probably the best heel in RPG history.
Yeah, I know. Believe me, I know. Maybe I'd get along with him in real life. I don't know. I talk to him on Twitter and I just walk away just with my entire nervous system on fire.
Yeah, that's why he does it. It's for the love of the game and to make you feel that way.
But they're right. So I'm going back in, and in the next edition and the next iteration of the game, I'm putting more stuff in, because I want to, and because they're right, and damn it, I have a lot of work to
what
do.
are they right about? For
They
posterity.
For posterity.
Yeah,
literally writing it down. There's literally a blog post.
Listen, I'm here as the Bro SR booster. So I still believe in Jeffro.
I think they're right that if I was to take any one thing from Winning Secrets so far, it's that the judge, host, weaver, whatever, I don't care what it is, whatever you want to call it, he has one job, and that's to keep things running. He is not in charge of story. He is not in charge of NPCs. He is not in charge of what's going on in the background. That's all for the players. They're right. That's just objectively correct. There shouldn't be an argument about that. So I'm retooling the game to put that in. And I think it's going to work.
What do you think of the 4D guys and their talk about co-creation, where a lot of world building details and like ambient setting information is handed over to as a player responsibility live at play?
I don't like it, but we don't have time, because if I'm not off at 8:30, I may not live.
Okay, all right, no worries.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, please, Snake Eyes, which is a brilliant acid trip of a game, and
that barely exists. It is like I love it. It is a 16-page Google Doc right now that you can get on DriveThruRPG for free.
Looks amazing. I love it.
But we're going to keep tinkering with it through the summer, but also Steve and I have started working away at our next game, which will be more ambitious, I think. Snake Eyes, in a lot of ways, first and foremost, was I have been hacking and tinkering and like workshopping ideas for games since like 2016, and they all exist as archived or half deleted Google Docs and scribbles on notebooks that I can't find, and I was really frustrated with that. I was really struggling to like get anything finished, and then I got a prescription for ADHD medication, and suddenly I felt able to finish tasks. And I'm like,
I feel called out.
I'm like, by Jove, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna finish a game.
By Jove.
And so we had last summer we played Dawn of Worlds. Peace be upon him, Jeffro. And so last summer we played did a play-by-post over 7 months of Dawn of Worlds, which is this free
game.
It's a wonderful little world building game, and but the thing about when you do it by play-by-post with one turn per week, players write. Like, they write stuff.
They'd have to.
And so, like Steve wrote epic poetry. And like we built this. And the thing is that I told them right out the gate, I don't want to make just a generic fantasy setting with elves and dwarves and stuff. And they delivered. We got a weird place. And at the center of this weird place with these weird people and these, like, it's a super strange like Vancian dying Earth setting, and right there at the epicenter of it. How soon do you need to leave, good sir?
3 minutes. I'm just giving my heads up. She's
okay. I'll probably talk about Snake Eyes a little bit after you disconnect.
Yep, absolutely.
Here, let me while you're talking, let me just give the little banner here for Crescendo.
Yes. Show Crescendo. You should play Crescendo. I haven't, but I will.
Yes, you will.
And okay, so we get this strange setting, and then at the center of it is this very strange city, Pax we call it, and it just has a lot going on. It has a psychic underwater meat city populated by evil frog people. It has a levitating island covered in wizard universities, Terry Pratchett style. It has a sentient fungal hive mind that permeates the consciousness of all the people in the city and operates basically as a unconscious will of the city itself, with each person in the city serving as a node in the neural network. It's a bonk. Like, that's something to do on our to-do list this summer, is a setting gazetteer for the city of Pax. It is an insane gonzo, and yet intentionally, like, thematically, it's not gonzo in that we just kind of like did whatever.
Right.
It's gonzo in that over the course of 7 months, we iteratively built and evolved this extremely unusual, distinct space. And I looked at it and I'm like, this is very Dying Earth. It's very pulp. It's very Gene Wolfe. I drew a lot from Jeff Vandermeer. It's very Viraconium. It's kind of amber. And so I was like, what would Edgar Rice Burroughs do? Well, he would drop somebody from Earth into that city. And I thought it'd be really fun to do a American Portal fantasy take on this city, not in the isekai sense. And I specify this in the intro to Snake Eyes, that Snake Eyes is not an isekai, in that the hero is not a loser who finds himself uniquely posed and competent in this new world. The hero is someone who was competent on Earth, and those competencies are relevant in this new place he finds himself in. But also that the hero will not acquire a gaggle of giggling schoolgirls. Like, there's this, there's more to it than that. But I wanted to contend with the problem of doing men's detective fiction, like Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, like the noir hard-boiled stuff, in an RPG that assumes multiple players. Because all of that fiction, whether that's like Jack Reacher or Die Hard or whatever, it's about one man against all odds. And how do you do that without doing the Bat Family thing of giving him a bunch of tonally deaf sidekicks?
How do you do that?
How do you do it? And the answer I decided was there was a little micro game called Everyone is John, where you play the voices in the head of the most schizophrenic man on Earth. And so the Everyone is John is a one-shot party game where you are bidding points to take control of this man on basically a Grand Theft Auto style, like rampage across the city. Like, it's very over the top. It's very goofy. You can't play it straight, because to play it straight would be really depressing. And I played, I don't know, again, I actually didn't confirm if you're a video game guy or not. There's a wonderful RPG called Disco Elysium. And in Disco Elysium, your skills talk to you. So you're like, a lot of the dialogue is this Greek chorus of your character's abilities and skills giving you advice, like, punch him in the mouth. Go and hit him. You know you want to. And I thought it'd be fun to basically have the players do that. But I was like temperamentally averse to a metagame thing where it's like you're playing, like, one person's playing his courage or whatever, like, abstractly. I wanted the players to have distinct characters that were their own. And so I opted for like an Oracle of Delphi situation. The players are minor gods. They are so minor. They are so petty and tiny and pathetic that they have managed exactly one worshiper, this detective. And the only reason they're able to influence him at all is that as a person from Earth, his brain doesn't have the psychic immune system to resist their divine advances. And so they can get into his head and make him do stuff where they can't affect other people because they're too weak. So there's this the kind of parasitic relationship between the players and the detective. The detective serving as basically their anchor to the real world. It's how they interact with the physical world. And so you have the story conceit of this one highly competent detective solving crimes in this, because that is he's not a Confederate veteran. He is a private eye who continues to do private eye stuff in this insane gonzo city. So you have the players are playing these gods, they're controlling him, and the way that I have it structured is the players bid. They say the detective finds himself in a situation. I say, what do you guys? Anyone want to suggest anything? And then, and this is very important, in character, as the voice in the detective's head, they talk to him and they tell him what they want him to do. And you have to do it in character because the phrasing matters. Because if the dice are against you and you fail, the fail generally results is a monkey's paw, like when you grant players like a wish spell and you misinterpret them on purpose. So they must talk in character because the whole point is like basically that he hears the voices of the gods, he hears the will of the gods, but he didn't interpret it correctly. And that's how you handle like mechanical failure.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
Everyone makes their suggestions, and then we roll dice, and it's like a dice poker system. Basically, whoever has the best hand has their suggestion go through to the detective. That's the person whose suggestion they will act upon. And if that person's hand is better than the detective's hand, the action succeeds. But if that person's hand is worse than the detective's hand, the detective he takes the reins, he botches it, he fails somehow. And this when we play tested this, it plays surprisingly quickly. Like it's very smooth and it's very conversational because you're kind of bidding and then for XP, very simple. Anytime you want to make a suggestion, you spend a bid. You have a pool of bids that you get. You spend a bid, and at the end of whoever succeeds, they collect all of those bids as XP that they get at the end of the session. So you're incentivized to not take turns. You want to horn in on other people's conversations because you want to get a big stack of chips as XP for yourself. So there's kind of a cooked-in PvP element there.
Yeah.
And then there is a narrative flavor aspect, which is that your ability scores, your stats that you would see in a conventional RPG, is the type of actions that your god will describe. So when you put a bid forward, you might pull from your pool of loud bids, where you encourage the detective to do something boisterous, over the top, or violent. And so when you roll up your stats, that determines the types of actions that you are able to suggest to the detective, and that will define the character of your god and what sort of things your god wants to see enacted in the world. It creates his domain, per se, and that can develop over time. That's the core mechanic. Like that's the kind of the core way it plays. The relationship between the world of PAX and the detective's brain is a two-way street, however, in that his mind is weak to the psychic influence of the city, and it is able to make him do stuff. However, he is also an invasive species, and the psychic field of the city is weak to his psionic emanations. And so on the GM side, you have a dream journal. These are recurring dreams that you would make prior to the campaign. The recurring dreams that the detective has every night. So anytime the detective goes to sleep, you roll on the table of dreams, and that gives you a new dream. And that dream, for the rest of the time that detective is awake, anytime he fails an action, anytime that the players encounter a new situation or NPC, and anytime the snake eyes are rolled, anytime double ones are rolled, that dream will modulate reality. It might change the behavior of an NPC. It might introduce a new variable. It might influence a decision that the detective makes. So basically, his dreams slowly warp the reality around him.
Okay.
And again, this is all intentionally, like it's diegetic in the sense that his dreams really are actually modifying the game world. And at the end of each session, the player who has the most XP from that session is allowed to rewrite the most recent dream in a game of telephone, where it's like basically, so the players are modifying the detective. The detective is modulating the world with his dreams, and then the players are taking those dreams and shifting them. And so the longer the campaign progresses, the more that the detective's own dreams and inner life lose touch with his life back on Earth. His memories of people that he knew back on Earth, his connection to Earth will slowly be replaced and modified. So maybe a dream about a motel eventually becomes a dream about an inn or a tavern here in the city, right? Like the idea being, you can't write a new dream, you have to rewrite the existing dream, but you're allowed to like basically tweak it a little. Like there's kind of there's an approval process where it's the idea being that you're trying to just modulate it ever so slightly over time. So you get this two-way street of psychic influences, and then the next thing that we would like to develop is a progression system for the gods becoming more powerful, such that they could then start maybe influencing the world on their own. Maybe they gather some followers, maybe they get their own little temple, maybe they can influence the physical world in their own ways outside of the detective. The idea being that eventually you get too big for your britches, you leave the detective, you have your own religion, and you make a new god that takes up resident in the detective's brain, right? Like it's kind of that's like the retirement process. And
the
reason I have this is that the idea is that any given game master playing Snake Eyes has his detective, and he can take it from table to table and have these episodic crime thriller adventures. And today I'm hearing the voice of these gods, but tomorrow I might hear the voices of different gods. And so because this setting is so intensely opinionated, I wanted there to be an outlet for game master creativity and game master continuity, and that is their detective is their baby, and he'll change and evolve with them over time between tables, between player characters. That's like that's probably actually the most concise description of Snake Eyes I've managed so far. It's a weird game.
It's interesting hearing these two, both you and Spyder, talking about your games in general, kind of side by side, because there's in their differences, there's also some similarities too, especially
the Dream Journal. I just stole straight from Crescendo.
Yeah.
Like I read Crescendo, and I was like, oh, I could do something weird with that.
But it also just cements this play to find out what happens idea that you guys are really kind of pushing aggressively, kind of in your game specifically, kind of in response to this.
So the first playtest of Snake Eyes, which is also the only playtest of Snake Eyes I've run it once, but it worked so well that I'm confident it'll work again the next time I run it. Like we've absolutely struck on something here. But the first playtest, I explained the mechanics to the players, and then I said, Vince Black, a repo man from Florida, wakes up in an office in a city he does not recognize, and there's a knock at the door with a secretary saying that there's someone here to see him. And they're like, well, send him in. There's a guy, he's looking for some stolen jewelry. Here's the woman who took it from him. Here's the last place he saw her. Figure it out. And that's all I had planned. It was I had like this much.
Oh, nice.
Like I keep one of these sticky pad notes by my desk, and I was running on my computer. I literally just like before the game wrote out a little sticky pad thing there. And we just riffed off of that because the players told me what they wanted. And admittedly, I was playing with the guys that made this setting. I was playing with the guys that did the play button. So they knew the world, and they were able to kind of navigate around it in that sense. So the goal, and we've thought about Solo Rolo, my writing partner, and I have talked about ways that we could adapt this style of play for other settings. The two that I think stuck out as most promising is a cyberpunk take where basically instead of gods, the detective has his brain being taken over by malware. Like basically you're playing rogue AIs that are asserting themselves on the detective through his cyberware. Which works thematically. And then the other one that I think could be very fun, it would have a designated end the way that Crescendo does, is doing a Western where you are a a veteran of the American Civil War, haunted by the ghosts of your compatriots. You were the sole survivor. You're the sole survivor of a attack that went wrong. Someone betrayed your platoon, and everyone died except you. And the ghosts of your comrades are following you around until such a time as you can exact vengeance on the people who betrayed you. And so, if you've ever seen the Clint Eastwood Western Hang 'em High, it's about him going town to town, one by one, hunting down every person from the lynch mob who tried to kill him and failed. And so each session would be basically you tracking down a different member of the people who betrayed your platoon, and the ghosts working out their ghosts getting their unsettled business settled by their one living associate. So I think there's ways that you could riff it.
That's pretty exciting. There's
there's a lot there.
Makes me kind of want to just forsake all the other tasks and all the other things to do and just like, let me give this a try.
It is
a bad habit for me.
It is free. It is barely. It is technically playable, but it is very loose. It's very rough right now. It's like I list it as 0.2 beta. Like it's like very early on.
That is the tagline. Technically playable.
It is technically playable, and I know this because we have played it and didn't really run into any problems.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah. And the next project down the line, I don't have details that I can give you other than the we like a good word salad tagline to kind of guide us. So for Snake Eyes, it was electrofungal weird fiction, hard-boiled portal fantasy, the shape of noir to come. And this is the next project. The working title I have on my computer is Paleo Gothic Propaganda.
All right.
And that's all I'll say about that for now.
Color me intrigued. Goodness. I mean, that's a good way to kind of bring us to the end. I think there's so many more ways we could go with this, and I almost feel like we barely even scratched the surface. But thank you for coming out.
It's a deep topic. It can go for quite a long time, but.
You guys told me it was a deep topic, and I was like, "Yeah, we got it. It'll be simple."
To be fair, I actually think that not only do I think that we did the topic justice, but I actually think that in discussing it with Spyder, I unlocked variables of understanding that have previously eluded me. So
nice. So, glad that could help. And we have like a coded source that we can look to for that. But yeah, let me give your information here so people can find you online. I'm sure everyone who's watching this probably already knows where to find you, but this is for posterity. And yeah, I definitely check out Snake Eyes and then Crescendo as well. He had to duck early, but thanks to Spyder for coming out as well. It was good. I think this show is very selfish on my part. I kind of benefit the whole time, making the people I talk to kind of inundate me with the work and the ideas.
Yeah.
So it's kind of sneakily making things cool and interesting for me. And this was very interesting. I've got such a messy series of notes. To just kind of go from.
It was a delight. I really feel like I've come. There's this G.K. Chesterton quote about imagine that you set sail for New South Wales from England. Like you just set sail to go for Australia, and you travel all around the world, and only for you to touch down and realize that you're back in South Wales, which is to say you're like back in England, and like you're back, like you went out to try all this other stuff, but eventually you just wound up back where you were. And I really feel like that's been my experience, where I set out from a certain perspective and ventured and tried all this other stuff, only to arrive back at where I had started, which was this basically this story game thing where I was running story games. I was having a blast, and then I heard about the Broassar, and I fought it, and I growled about it, and I grumbled about it, and then I was like, no, actually, they're right, and AD&D is all I ever am gonna need, and I ran AD&D, and I had a blast, and I learned a lot of stuff, and then I realized I'm like, what? I think this might be the same thing as what I was doing before, and admittedly, when I said that, I did catch some heat from from some Brosar people, but I think that's just the nature of the beast. I think if you claim anything, you can expect to be argued with about it.
Yeah.
So,
And it's kind of the point of this is to kind of bring these things together, compile them into one place, and
well,
give us
yeah.
something to springboard off of. I found, like, even from the last one, which was just that chainmail is in AD&D and it's a part of it. It's integral. It's DNA, and it's like, okay, I didn't understand that, and now I do. I'm like, okay, cool. It makes sense.
But it works backwards too, in that
Yeah.
if you can use chainmail to fill gaps in AD&D, or rather, you can use chainmail you can recognize chainmail in AD&D or use chainmail to fill gaps in OD&D. You can also work backwards in that the gaps that are in chainmail can be filled with Tony Bath's Ancient Wargaming, and they fill basically almost all the same gaps, not all of them, but almost all of them. And that, and there's elements of Tony Bath's Ancient Wargaming in the Dungeon Master's Guide, like almost one for one, like that have been pulled from there because Gary was reading Tony Bath, and so like this is to say that story gaming and RPGs and war games are all a continuous branch of the same thing. There was no elusive shift. There was no change from wargaming to something else. Wargaming was always about this, and this is just wargaming by other means.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to notice between these two, it's almost a two-parter. It feels like we're in kind of this mode of uncovering or discovering that this is all connected and that we're all in the same conversation, kind of.
Yeah.
And yeah. I'm finding some strange connectivity between the last one and this one that feels like I have to noodle on this a bit, but yeah, but it's also late. I'm sure it's late for you as well.
Yeah, I do unfortunately have to depart, but thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for ensuring that Spyder was there for me to torment him and inflict psychic suffering upon him. It's one of the only ways that I experience happiness anymore. So,
any final suffering you want to impart to him before we go? Just as like a last, like he wasn't here to respond to you.
He can't stop me. He can't stop me. No, I think actually I've kicked him enough. I think I'll give him time to recover.
Show a little mercy. Show a little mercy. Yeah. Got it. All right, cool. Well, that's pretty much it. And with that, I guess we'll say farewell. And I'm going to try to find where the button is to stop this. And let me.
It's
somewhere up here.
Yeah.
All right. Adios, everybody. See you around and see you online.
Yeah.